welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone on this Saturday morning to talk about Week 7 of the NFL is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you today?
Man, I'm doing good, feeling good. I think there's a lot of really pivotal games in the NFL this week, so I can't wait to dive into them here.
Yeah, and we already have one game in the books. Arizona kept their season alive by beating New Orleans. That was a shootout, and Andy Dalton really threw that game away. 2 picks. One of them wasn't really his fault. His receiver bobbled the ball, but the other one was definitely his fault. Any quick thoughts on that game, Jimmy?
No, I mean, it was only a shootout because of Andy Dalton. He did become the first quarterback to ever throw 2 pick sixes in 2-minute drives like that. And once again, to all the Baker haters out there, I know he's not playing well, but if Andy Dalton can still start in the NFL, so can Baker Mayfield.
I agree with that. We also had a big trade over the last couple of days. Christian McCaffrey is going to San Francisco. We'll talk about that when we get to the games for San Francisco and Carolina. But first, we start with Jimmy. It seems like the Cleveland Browns season is pretty much on the line this weekend as they travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5 now. It was 46.5 2 days ago, so that has adjusted by a point. It is plus 230 on the money line for the Browns, minus 275 for the Ravens. Cleveland's a mess right now, Jimmy, but Baltimore seems like they're a little bit of a mess too. How do you see this game playing out?
I'm taking Cleveland at plus 6.5 and the over. Neither of these teams can play defense. Neither of them can seem to execute late. I do believe Baltimore is going to win just because at some point it's going to be Lamar Jackson has to make a play and then Jacoby Brissett has to make a play. And all you Browns fans that tell me how good Jacoby Brissett is, well, we know what's going to happen when Jacoby Brissett's got to make a play. So I don't think Cleveland will win. I think Cleveland can keep it close. But I agree with you. This is a super pivotal game for the AFC North. If the Browns would just run the damn ball and find a way to win this football game, their season is still alive. With a loss here, I think the season is pretty close to on the verge of dead. But Baltimore has not been able to hold leads. They've been able to get leads. They haven't been able to hold them. They just ruled J.K. Dobbins out for the next 4 to 6. Gus Edwards, I think, is going to come back off of his injury. So Baltimore might be pretty one-dimensional with Lamar doing things. I just don't trust Kevin Stefanski to win a close game right now. There's no evidence that he can do it. And, really the second half of that game against New England, everything fell apart. They looked like a team kind of in disarray, and I'm not sure playing a Harbaugh coach team with Lamar Jackson is the answer to get better.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things with this game. Just to talk about how pivotal it is, the Browns are currently a game behind Baltimore, and if they lose this game, that puts them basically 2.5 behind Baltimore. They do play another game this season, but that would also make the Browns 1-4 in the conference. And when you look at some of the other teams that they're going to have to be battling for playoff spots, they lost the game to the Patriots. The Dolphins are 3-2 in the conference. The Jets are 3-2 in the conference. The Ravens are already 3-2 in the conference. The Chargers, who the Browns lost to, are 4-2 in the conference. So these tiebreaker scenarios start looking really bad for the Browns. And you also look at them being 2-5 with 4 more games left with Jacoby Brissett before Deshaun Watson comes back. We were thinking they would need to have at least 5 or 6 wins preferably, but 5 and 6 would be the absolute worst they could be to try to still keep their playoff hopes alive. So if they lose this game, they got to go 3-1 over the next 4, and that's going to be difficult because they got Cincinnati coming up, they've got Buffalo coming up, they've got Tampa Bay coming up. Those are going to be really difficult games for this team to win with the way they're playing.
I don't see urgency from the Browns. I don't think Cleveland can beat Tampa Bay the way Pittsburgh beat Tampa Bay. I don't believe
they're not coached well enough.
Yeah, I don't believe they can win a close game like that, but they're just not scoring enough points late or being able to stop teams from scoring points late. I think this is going to be a rough road. Hopefully when Watson gets out there, he's hits the ground running and he's ready to play because this is going to be a rough season. But I agree with you because there's a lot of people that are like, well, It's okay Cleveland's 2-4 because most of the conference is 2-4 and 3-3. But we're losing ground to teams that are 3-3. And like that's where 3-3 and 3-2, and that's where the problem comes in. So they desperately need this win, and maybe they'll come out, play like their hair is on fire, play with that intensity, play with the energy, punch Baltimore in the mouth with the running game. Let's get Brissett away from 45 throws a game. Let's get him back to 20 and try to control the clock and win the game. There may be a path for victory, but I don't think the team is ready to beat a better team, and I still think Baltimore is better, even with what's going on in the secondary.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like Cleveland plus 6.5 in this game, even though I think Baltimore wins.
I totally agree.
Baltimore wants to run the football and have deep downfield passes off of that, and those are the two things the Browns really struggle with. Also, Wyatt Teller is out, and Baltimore has figured out how to contain this Cleveland running attack. They've done it in the past. I would expect them to at least be okay at doing that tomorrow. I want to talk about something that was a constant talking point last year. And the word I'm going to bring up is maturity. And the other word I'm going to bring up is accountability. This front office last year threw Baker under the bus because they said he was immature. And that's a fair criticism. Baker is immature.
Yeah.
But Myles Garrett ended up getting banged up last week because of his reckless driving and immature habits. We just learned that Deshaun Watson got a speeding ticket for going 95 miles an hour. Now we hear from John Johnson and John Greco that guys aren't studying. They're not doing the work outside of Berea to make sure that they're prepared as professionals. And the reason New England clowned them last week is because that's a team where everybody on that team is held to the same level of accountability. And we look at Cleveland, we see that Myles Garrett has had speeding tickets in the past, and now it's affecting his on-field play because he was reckless and he got in an accident. But there's no accountability for him. He was never suspended. He wasn't fined. Everybody just patted him on the back and said, oh, we're just thankful you weren't more injured. Same thing with Deshaun Watson. There's no accountability. And when there isn't accountability, we see what we see on the field. Guys are not playing up to their potential. Guys are drifting. Guys aren't making tackles. And that just goes to show that Kevin Stefanski does not have full control of this team. And he needs to figure out how to do that because these guys, as you said, they need to have a fire lit under their asses and they need to play some football. But they are not doing that. And we're getting to the point now. This is year 3 with Stefanski, and the same problems keep rearing their ugly heads. And I don't know if Watson solves those problems because Watson doesn't have anything to do with the defense. Everybody can talk about how, the offense will be better. Well, they're a top 10 offense right now. So what more are you getting out of Watson? I just don't see it. Maybe he finds a way to make Schwartz a receiver in the NFL, but I don't know how that happens. Like, I don't know how the quarterback makes the receiver specifically better when you have a receiver that seems to be playing as poorly as Schwartz is.
Right. Well, I agree with that. But I think if Deshaun Watson is the same quarterback, I think there are decisions that Brissett is making that Watson isn't going to make. Like, and just the physical level of play. Like last week, there was a throw. They ran a play action with where Njoku ran a go route.
Yeah, that was a touchdown with a better pass.
Yeah, with a better quarterback, that's a touchdown, which Deshaun Watson is that. I don't know, but I agree with you on the defense. But I have a problem. I'm glad you brought this up because I have a problem with John Johnson saying anything about anything because he may be the laziest player on the defense. John Johnson and Taki are being targeted by offenses because Taki's not physically gifted enough and John Johnson isn't putting forth enough effort. But I think as the veteran in that room, I think John Johnson's attitude is wearing off on all those other young defensive backs. But I agree with you. I think there's some stylistic problems. And if I was Andrew Berry, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I may very well go to Kevin Stefanski, and I may say, fire Joe Woods, and I'm bringing Greg Williams in to run this defense because they need some fire. They need somebody to yell. I think Stefanski coming up with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. I doubt Stefanski ever had a chance to yell at anybody. And I think it tells
Greg Williams will yell at people.
Yeah, I think it tells that Stefanski's always been the good guy, always been the you've got to have that. There's got to be somebody on the coaching staff, and I agree with you, to hold somebody accountable. Like, we can't keep going in press conferences and saying Jacoby Brissett is doing a good job. No, he's not.
Yeah, he's turning the ball over way too much. Well, I mean, but that goes back to accountability. Maybe there's accountability in that locker room, but there's no accountability with the fans. There's no accountability in public, and I think that's a problem. And I also think another thing that Kevin Stefanski, and I said this last year, and I said he has no courage of his convictions when it comes to play calling. And you saw that last week. He just gave up on the run. He said, we're not even going to try and run against you and not make you defend it, and we're going to try and win it with Brissett. And that's just... They are so concerned with what their opponent wants to do and countering that they forget that they're supposed to be dictating what they do based on what their roster is. And I know he was the 2020 Coach of the Year, but he's terrible with adjustments. And if him and his coaching staff are supposed to be so goddamn smart, why do they consistently look so fucking stupid, Jimmy?
Well, I'm going to take a couple toot-toots here real quick. So, first off, we told everybody last year, at the start of the season, that you needed to temper expectations for Kevin Stefanski because last year was really his first year as a head coach in the NFL because in 2020, there was no noise in the stadiums. It was a very different atmosphere. Though there was very little expectation. There was very little what it's like coaching in the NFL. So we told everybody, temper those expectations. Like, it's not going to be like it was in 2020. And it wasn't. And he struggled at times doing that. I know what you know, what I know, what you know. So I'm going to do this. Last week, I told y'all, nobody in New England was worried about that football game. They said, we just need to not make mistakes. Cleveland's going to beat themselves. And I told you, Kevin Stefanski likes to be the one to stop Nick Chubb. Doesn't even make the other team do it. He does it himself. And it's exactly what happened. Thanks for the $230 you put in my checking account. I appreciate it, Kevin Stefanski. But, I don't understand it. And I agree with you. Make somebody stop the run. Please. Please. Make somebody stop the run. Or make somebody stop the short passing game. Because that's where...
I mentioned that when they came out, empty set, and then threw another pass on second down, the one that was intercepted, and they come out pass on their first drive. I could hear you sighing all the way in Lakewood from Ravenna. I almost couldn't believe it. I'm like, what are you doing?
In the hell are you doing?
Empty set. I was just like, how do you not come out? If you want to pass, then why aren't you coming out showing run and taking a shot downfield off play action to, I don't know, maybe somebody that's not Pharaoh Brown, your third string fucking tight end. That's Freddie Kitchens bullshit, man. What are you running big plays for and taking big shots for with your third fucking tight end? That's why put the ball in the hands of your best players. Why is this so fucking difficult? Why do so many NFL coaches fail to recognize this? It is just mind-boggling.
If you want to force the ball downfield like that, throw it to Amari Cooper. That's why you went and got him. I wouldn't do it, but if you want to make that decision, do that.
Wait, you want to throw the ball downfield to the guy that you specifically paid $20+ million a year to throw the ball downfield to? I don't know, Jimmy. That's a wild thought. I don't know.
But there's I understand. If you want to go empty set, that's fine. But how about the two most inside route runners are Bryant and Njoku, and you run a couple shallow crosses. One of them's going to be open. Get 5 easy yards. I don't understand what Stefanski is trying to do with this offense. Well, actually, I do. I think he's still trying to prove to everybody that every problem the offense had last year was Baker Mayfield's fault. Anybody can come in and throw footballs downfield. Well, guess what? Baker led the league in interceptions last year as your quarterback. Brissett would end up leading the league in interceptions if he was your quarterback all year this year. So maybe there's something to do with the play calling too. Like,
Do you remember the Tuesday morning quarterback with Greg Easterbrook?
I do.
It was a weekly column, and he had a section in there that was, "It's better to have rushed and lost than never to have rushed at all."
Yep.
And he would often bring up the fact that he thinks coaches like to call a lot of pass plays because the offensive coaches get credit for those pass plays when they work. Meanwhile, when the running game is working, it's the running back, it's the line. Those are
Yeah,
the guys that get the credit.
that's true.
I don't. It doesn't seem like Stefanski and them are worried about who gets the credit, but they're definitely all taking the blame right now, except for Barry. Barry doesn't seem to be getting a lot of blame for some of the problems that this team has roster wise, which is Anthony Schwartz is just not good. He's just
No,
not. He's
can't
just not
catch
good.
football.
He's just not good. And on the defensive side of the ball, they rolled the dice with their defensive line, and it's just not working. And I know everybody
No,
was excited when Clowney came back, but the dude's played 2.5 games.
I mean, literally, like, I don't know, and this is the last play I'm going to bring up from last week because I mean the game went exactly how I expected it to go, but that play at the end of the half where the Patriots were just trying to get in field goal range, and they went, "Wow, there's a crappy defensive tackle. There's Taki, and there's John Johnson all lined up in a row. Let's run the ball right there." And the guy went untouched into the end zone for 30 yards. Like,
Yeah.
it's exactly where
Well,
we said at the start
they
of the year.
showed Terry Pluto talked about that in his column this morning. He said that Belichick talked about that play specifically and said he saw how they all came up, and when they do that, they tend to bail. Like they show pressure, but then they bail and they fall back, and when they fall back, they lose their gap integrity. Well, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I just don't
It's
understand.
this team is just. I mean, we'll see what they look like today. The sky's going to be falling if they lose. I'm really excited to see what it looks like because I want to see how this team responds. And if they respond with a flat game like they did last week, man, like somebody has to go. I don't know if it's Joe Woods. I don't know if it's the Prefer, their special teams coach, who just doesn't seem to ever do anything
Yeah,
right. Like somebody's
I mean
got to go. Somebody's got to be held
that's
accountable to send a message to the locker room like this shit will not stand. All right, let's move on to the rest of the slate, Jimmy. We did talk about Christian McCaffrey getting traded. He's no longer a Carolina Panther. I'm sure he's happy about that because that team stinks. The the Panthers are hosting the Tampa Bay Bucks, who are just not a very good football team. It seems either they seem to have some problems of their own, even though they're 3-3. This line was 10.5 before the trade. It is now 13. The over-under sits at 39.5, which is down a point from Thursday. The money line on Tampa Bay is minus 700. Carolina is plus 500. Everybody thinks Tampa Bay is going to roll in this game. I'm taking Tampa Bay too because I don't see how Carolina is going to be able to score with PJ Walker as their quarterback. Has the magic of Brady as a leader fallen apart, especially with the party that he went to this weekend for Robert Kraft's wedding? I think the younger guys are tuning him out. That seems to be the general consensus, and I agree with that. What do you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, because one thing with having Tom Brady as your leader, he's never been the one to bring noise into the locker room, noise around the team before, and that's what's happened. And he doesn't look real fresh. He looks, not that I'm surprised or not that I even blame him, but he looks even less likely to stand in there and take a hit now than he ever has before. And I think the injuries on the offensive line into the receiving core has caused that team problems. And the Carolina Panthers did trade Christian McCaffrey, but they didn't trade any of their young defensive talent. So I'm taking the Panthers here. I don't think Tampa Bay can beat anybody by 13 points right now. The offense just doesn't look good. Like, I think the under, and I think the Carolina at plus 13 is the play here. Chuba Hubbard is a good running back. He's obviously not Christian McCaffrey, but he is a good running back. So I think they'll be able to move the ball just enough. But I agree with you. I don't think the young guys, I don't think they really want to hear it from Tom. Like, dude, like, I'm being asked questions. I'm having to listen about you going to stuff for Kraft and your possible divorce, man. That's not why you were brought here. You were brought here because all you were about is football. And I think that time has passed. I imagine this is Brady's last year. I just don't think I don't think it's still there. Like I said, he's just not willing to stay in the pocket long enough to let anything develop. So I think this will be the last year for Brady. But I think with the way the NFC is, I think Tampa can still make a deep playoff run if they get a little healthy. But I don't think they're beating anybody by 2 touchdowns.
That seems fair. I mean, Tom Brady doesn't want to be there. He tried to go to Miami in the offseason. Like,
Wow.
We all know that.
Wow.
Like, that's a documented fact. We know that that's what was going on. So, of course, he doesn't want to be there. And he's going through a divorce, which is a major problem, too. Like, that's off the field shit that can definitely affect what's going on. I still think Tampa Bay's mostly okay, especially in this game. I just think Carolina's really bad. Our next matchup sees the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Atlanta Falcons. This is a 6.5-point spread. The Bengals are favored. The over-under sits at 47, plus 240 for the Falcons on the money line, minus 285 for the Bengals. Cincy has worked their way back to 3-3, Jimmy, and Atlanta is surprisingly 3-3, 6-0 against the spread. I'm sticking with Atlanta. I'm going to keep picking them until they lose a game against the spread. What say you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think you can. Cincinnati they're looking better. They still don't look right. Atlanta's defense is really feisty, and their offense is doing just enough late in games to cover spread. So I'm with you here. Give me Atlanta with the points.
I think the Cleveland Browns, if Jacoby Brissett has another bad game, I'm willing to say that the Browns should pay attention to what's going on with Mariota in Atlanta and think about putting Dobbs in and running that kind of gimmicky offense where the quarterback is also a runner, because we're seeing the Giants, who we'll talk about here in a second, have some success. Daniel Jones has not been a good quarterback this year, but he's made some plays with his legs and faking. They use him as sort of an option threat, even though he doesn't get a ton of carries. And that's keeping defenses just off base enough that they can score some points. And Atlanta's had a lot of success with that too. And I'm wondering if I've talked about it before, defenses have to gear up to play quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And all the other quarterbacks in the league just aren't as talented as those guys, and they're not as dangerous as those guys. So if all you can do is throw the ball, well, maybe that's not enough anymore. Maybe you do have to be able to run, and you can't just be one-dimensional. So the fact that they're able to run the ball enough to give Mariota enough space to throw the ball, I'm just really impressed with what the Atlanta coaching staff has done this year, because I thought that team was going to be terrible.
Yeah, I'm stunned. I thought Atlanta would be one of the 2 worst teams in the league. That really hasn't happened. But maybe if Stefanski started Dobbs and thought the defenses thought he was going to pass the ball, then he'd run the ball more.
Our next matchup is the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Detroit Lions. The Cowboys are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under sits at 49. The money line is plus 240 for the Lions, minus 295 for Dallas. Dak is coming back for this game. Cooper Rush held the team together pretty well. The Cowboys sit at 4-2. The Lions are 1-4. Jimmy, the Lions have made a ton of backdoor covers. I think they get another one here. That's why I'm going to take Detroit. But that Detroit defense, man, they make everybody's mom leave at halftime because they're so bad.
Yes, they do. But I agree with you. Give me Detroit with the 6.5. It's hard to say what Dallas's offense is going to look like. I know Detroit's dealing with some game time decisions. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown might be out already this week, so their playmakers are a little banged up. But I still think they'll find a way to fight to only lose by a field goal. So give me 6.5.
Yeah, this is a game that I think is a lot like the Browns game, where I like the home team to win, Baltimore and Dallas, but I like the road team to cover.
Yeah. Yep.
Our next matchup is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are just trying to break my heart, Jimmy. They are hosting the New York Giants, who are surprisingly 5-1. The spread in this game is Jacksonville. I mean, how many games do you get where a 2-4 team is a 3-point home favorite against a 5-1 road team? The over-under is 43, plus 140 for the Giants on the money line, minus 160. Jimmy, talk me out of taking the Jacksonville Jaguars. Or are you taking the Jaguars this week? Who do you like here?
No, I still think the Giants stink. Like, I don't care. I don't care that they're 5-1. I don't care. Like at some point in time, the lack of offense that you're playing is gonna catch up to you. You've had so much wonky shit happen. I still don't think they're any good. I'm with Vegas. I still think Jacksonville's a field goal better. I think this is probably a push. It's 3. So, but I'm taking Jacksonville. I like the over. I think the Jaguars win this game. I still think offensively, I think the Jaguars have more talent, but we're getting close to a point where Trevor Lawrence needs to put together a handful of good games in a row before there's some things being really said about him. But I like their offensive scheme. I still think they've got weapons. I think Peterson will really be up for playing an old NFC East foe. So I'm taking Jacksonville.
I'm actually taking the Giants because I'm tired of being wrong about the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
I don't love it. Dayball's just coaching his ass off. I was very critical of him coming into the year. Daniel Jones isn't playing that good, but Barkley is, and they're putting it together just enough. Yeah, I think you're 100% right on Trevor Lawrence. He's got to start showing more. And I think at some point in the next couple of weeks, he's going to have a nice little stretch where he plays well for, 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row. I just don't know when that's going to happen. So when it does, I'll flip and I'll start betting on the Jags again. And the Jaguars need to win this game because they're 2-4, and if they fall to 2-5, they're going to be a full 2 games behind whoever wins the Tennessee-Indianapolis game. The Titans are home, and they are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under sits at 41.5, minus 140 for the Titans on the money line, plus 122 for the Colts. How are the Colts 3-2, Jimmy, or 3-2-1? Like, this team stinks.
Yeah, they do stink. They still stink. They've beat one quality opponent. That's been all. I don't think he's any good. And I think Matt Ryan's going to look really bad this week after all the throws they had him throw last week to get where he got in the stat book for all-time yards. So I'm taking Tennessee here. I think Tennessee wins this game pretty easy.
I'm with you. I like Tennessee. You know what else I liked about Tennessee? Derrick Henry, looking more like his old self.
A little bit, yeah.
That's a good sign for them because Ryan Tannehill's not a good quarterback. But
no, sir.
If they can lean on Henry and get just enough out of that passing game, I think it's easy for them to win this game by a field goal.
Yeah.
A very interesting game that normally would be a lock. Green Bay is on the road. They're traveling to Washington to take on the Armada. They're 4.5-point favorites. This is actually down a point from Thursday when it was 5.5. The over-under sits at 41.5. Green Bay minus 225 on the money line. Washington plus 185. What the fuck's going on with Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy?
I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers is checked out almost as much as Tom Brady is. He might just be on his way out of the league as well. I understand. Doesn't seem like he's really willing to put in the work to develop another Devontae Adams. Like, I think he's got good young talent, and it's not working. But I also put some of that on LaFleur. He needs to give Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon more carries. Like, even if you're only running at 3 yards a clip, you need to stay with it to take some pressure off of what's happening when teams blitz Aaron Rodgers, because that used to be a recipe for disaster, but now it's working for teams. I'm taking the Armada here because I don't think Green Bay can beat anybody by a touchdown right now. I know it's only 4.5. I see maybe Green Bay winning by 3 late, maybe. So, I mean, if you wanted to take the Armada money line, I wouldn't be mad at you because I don't know what the hell's going on with Green Bay. And Washington's getting a little feisty here the last couple of weeks. I believe Wentz is done or out, right? So Taylor Heineke will be starting. So yeah. I don't know what that'll look like. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Armada here because I just don't know what Green Bay is going to look like.
I'm going to take Green Bay just on a hunch that Rodgers plays well because they're already 2.5 games behind Minnesota for the division.
Yeah,
they cannot afford to lose a game against Washington, and they need to win this one and they need to make a statement.
Yep.
So I'm gonna trust Aaron Rodgers to make a statement when they need one, and if he fails, then the warning bells will just be going off. Jimmy, our next game this line's moved 2 points.
Yep.
The Denver Broncos were 3-point favorites hosting the New York Jets on Thursday. That line is already down to 1 now. The over-under is 38, minus 102 for the Jets money line, minus 116 for the Broncos money line. I mean, I looked at this and when it was 3 and all I said was I get points to bet against Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. Thank you. I will take that. This Jets team's not bad. They might actually be a quarterback away. That defense is playing really well. You said this team had a lot of talent. They have proven you right.
I told you.
I'm guessing you like the Jets here in this game too.
Oh, Jets, Jets. Hey, but I agree with you. I think this is actually, I think a lot of the Jets wins have actually been less about the Jets and more about the team they're playing making mistakes. And Lord knows this Broncos team is going to make mistakes. Russ, man, this may go down as one of the worst NFL moves ever with what they spent and gave up to get Russell Wilson.
It's looking like one of the worst trades in professional sports.
Like it doesn't look right. I don't want to hear any more talk about, oh, Russ doesn't have weapons. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are two really good wide receivers. They may be just a little bit worse than Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, but it's not by a lot. And Russell Wilson's probably playing with the most talented tight end he's ever played with in his career, and he refuses to throw him the football. Russ looks cooked. They don't look well. Give me the Jets all day +1.
How long before Nathaniel Hackett gets fired?
I don't know because I can honestly say I haven't looked at the contract. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the owners don't care about the money. The Walton family doesn't care about that.
True.
They're not the ones that hired him. They're 2-4, and they just spent $250 million. Like, I can't imagine them sitting at 2-6 and going, all right, well, let's keep it going. Like, I don't see how that can happen, especially when you have somebody like Sean Payton sitting out there.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody's going to fire their coach. Well, but then again, it looks like McCarthy might be. I don't know. I think I'd really have to look at the staff to look and see, is there anybody there?
Well, probably not, because they have a head coach who doesn't know what he's doing, so I can't imagine anybody on his staff does either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a mess. Like, I mean, it's weird to see. I mean, a lot of people thought this Denver team was going to compete for the AFC West crown, thought this was a playoff team. We weren't as
I was going to say, not us.
Not us. We didn't think it, and it looks like we may have been right. So, but I don't know how you can
I didn't think they'd be this bad.
I guess if he continues to make the mistakes he's making, you have to fire him because he's been incompetent at the things the head coach has to be able to do.
Yeah, that team's completely unorganized. It looks like a Freddie Kitchens shit show is what it looks like. Yeah. I mean, they're a complete mess. So, I mean, they're the playoffs. Playoffs? I don't see how that team's even in the playoff conversation. And the Jets, they win and go to 5-2, then go ahead, man. That team's looking like they're going to the playoffs, which is crazy because that's another team that I thought would be really bad this year.
I told you. I mean,
All
told you.
Fine. I waved the white flag. Our next matchup is two teams that I wasn't very high on either. I don't think you were either. The Raiders are hosting the Houston Texans. The line is 7 points for this. The Raiders are favored. 45.5 is the over-under. Plus 250 for Houston on the money line. Minus 305 for Vegas. Things aren't going very well for Josh McDaniels in Vegas, Jimmy. Do you think they get their second win of the season here, and do you think they can cover this 7 points?
No, I don't think either of those things. I'm taking Houston at +7 and the money line. Houston is really playing hard.
You just can't quit the Houston money line bets, can you?
No, not with Damian. Not with Damian Pierce running like he's running. The defense is being feisty. The Raiders don't look like they know how to use a number one wide receiver. Like, they apparently just aren't sure what to do with Devontae Adams. Apparently there's just not enough film on him, I guess. I don't know. They don't know what he does well. The Raiders, I agree with you, McDaniels, maybe he is just one of those guys that's meant to be a coordinator, not a head coach, because the Raiders, they don't look quite as disciplined as you would expect. But we also knew they were lacking on talent on the defensive side of the ball, and that's caused them problems. So I'm going to take Houston here.
Yeah, I'm going to take Houston as well. Our next matchup is another possible destination for Sean Payton if things don't go the way a lot of people hope, and that's with the Los Angeles Chargers. They are hosting the Seattle Seahawks, who are a surprising 3-3. The Chargers are 5-point favorites here. This is another line that moved a point and a half because this was 6.5 on Thursday. The over-under is 50.5, plus 195 for the Seahawks, minus 225 for the Chargers. Jimmy, this seems like a classic matchup between a team that has a lot of talent and a coach who might not be very good against a team with less talent and a really good coach. And we saw that last week with the Browns and the Patriots. So I'm going to follow up my bet this week, and I like Seattle here. I like Pete Carroll, and God help me, I like Geno Smith.
Do you think Seattle can win the game, or do you think they can just cover?
I think they can win this game, but that plus 195 on the money line is too low. I just think it's too low, especially for a 5-point spread. They're on the road. The Chargers are going to charger, but man, if Brandon Staley can't get his shit together, they just seem all those 50-50 things. They seem to lose 80% of the 50-50 things. And that just seems to be something that has happened with the Chargers for a long time. So I'm not sure if we can just blame Brandon Staley or if it's just something with the Chargers as an organization.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like before Brandon Staley, it was like weird shit happens to the Chargers. Now with Brandon Staley, I feel like he's making the weird shit happen. And
that's
then
a good point.
Like with Seattle, shout out to all the Ringer football people, their podcasters, their Twitter personalities. They've coined the phrase Seattle will never play a normal game. So this game's going to get wonky. There might be a block punt and a safety in this one, but I agree. I think Seattle covers. I think they may have a chance to win. I don't think they will, but it's sad because I think talent-wise, I think the Chargers are probably like 10 points better on talent than Seattle, and I think they're going to win this game by a field goal.
Yeah, probably
like it's really weird. Like Brandon Staley needs to understand sometimes you need to just punt the football, dude. Like
yeah, and that's where I think a guy like Sean Payton being out there, like if you're Brandon Staley, you can't feel comfortable.
No.
Because if I was the owner of the Chargers, that's what I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at Brandon Staley all year and going, can I do better with Sean Payton? Because I think if the Chargers offer Sean Payton a competitive contract, that's the place that he would go.
Yeah, because they have talent, they have a structure in place. But can I talk a little bit about quarterbacks in the AFC?
Please.
So part of what I think Brandon Staley's problem is I think he's listened to too many media and talking heads. Okay. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are the two best quarterbacks in the AFC, possibly the two best quarterbacks in football. There's some other names you can throw in there. They are by far the two best. I think there's a wide margin between the two of them, and then Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, handful of other quarterbacks in the AFC and the NFL. I think Brandon Staley believes in his mind, and he's heard it enough to reinforce himself, that he believes Justin Herbert, that second class of guys, is way closer to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes than he actually is. Like, if I have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, there are very few situations where I'm going to punt. But Buffalo and Kansas City still punt more than the Los Angeles Chargers. Because I believe Brandon Staley thinks Justin Herbert is this top-tier quarterback in the NFL, and he's just not that dude yet. I think he's got the pieces to get there, but he hasn't quite got there as quick as Mahomes did, as Allen has, as Lamar has. I think him and Burrow can take another step, but they haven't yet. And he coaches too aggressive sometimes, just being like, well, I know every time Herbert's going to complete a pass on 4th and 3. No, you don't.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to just punt the football away.
Yeah, he needs to get out of that mindset.
Yeah, he's got a little. Him and Stefanski have that thing where they don't seem to always. They outsmart themselves. That's what happens. Our next matchup is another line that has moved quite a bit. Kansas City is traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers with their new running back, Christian McCaffrey. We'll see how much he plays in this game. I would expect they try to get him out there, but I can't imagine him playing more than half a dozen or so plays.
Yeah.
Anyway, this line was 3 on Thursday. It is now 1.5 that Kansas City is favored, which is very odd because most of the money line action and the spread action is on Kansas City, so I'm not sure how that line came down. The over-under sits at 49. Minus 129 for the Chiefs, plus 110 for the 49ers. San Francisco is pretty banged up in this game, but I think they're going to get Nick Bosa back for this game. Can they get enough pressure on Kansas City to disrupt that offense?
No, I don't think so. I think this is along with the Browns and Ravens game. I think this is a very pivotal game in the NFL for a lot of reasons. I think Christian McCaffrey will be really, really good in San Francisco, but I don't know if it really changes what San Francisco is with Jimmy Garoppolo, because all you're going to see is McCaffrey doing the things that Debo and Ayuk do near the line of scrimmage.
Well, it gives them, they can put Debo on one side of the field and McCaffrey on the other side of the field and keep the defense guessing as to which side the screen's going to go to.
Fair enough, but it's still that same thing. Like, I don't think it really adds an element to their offense. It's just a different piece moving on the board.
It's just another weapon to dump the ball off to.
But I think San Francisco.
Well, at least it will be for the 6-ish weeks he stays healthy.
Exactly. I think San Francisco needs to get the taste out of their mouth from that loss last week. I think that was a bad loss. Kansas City lost to one of the other premier teams in the NFL in a good game. Mahomes threw an interception late, something he doesn't do very often. I still don't think Buffalo wildly outplayed Kansas City. It doesn't change my opinion of what's going to happen in the playoffs. But Kansas City needs to win every game going forward to try to maintain home field advantage for the AFC. I expect Buffalo's going to lose one or two more games against bad teams because that's just what they do. Kansas City needs to win this game. Buffalo is on their bye this week, so you're not going to have to hear all the Josh Allen talk. I think this is a chance for Kansas City to beat a really good team who's not Buffalo and show everybody we're just fine. We know we got problems on defense. We'll get it right. We're going to be okay. I think this is a big-time game. I think Kansas City shows up for a big-time game. I think Kansas City wins this game by a touchdown.
I was taking San Francisco when it was 3 because I felt like this would be a really close game. But at 1.5, I like Kansas City because I think they win this game. I don't. The only thing that scares me about Kansas City is they have their bye next week. And we do see teams have letdown games before their bye. I would hope that doesn't happen with them because they did just lose to Buffalo, so they're going to want to go into their bye with a win. So that's why I like it better at 1.5. I didn't like them at 3. 3 would probably have been a push because I think Kansas City wins this game by a field goal.
Yeah, that's cool.
Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins. They are home, and they are 7.5-point favorites hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. The over-under sits at 45.5. It looks like Tua is going to be back for this game, and Jesus, man, Pittsburgh just found a way to win that game last week. And it's just Pittsburgh seems to do that with regularity, where even when they're not a good team, they find a way to win. Do you think Tua coming back do you think this winds up being a blowout, or do you think Pittsburgh can keep it close?
I'm going to take Miami here with caution. This is a stay away for me, but I feel like with Tua, we have evidence that we know there's going to be like an 8-minute run somewhere in the game where Miami's going to be explosive, and I don't know if Pittsburgh can match that. So I could see Miami winning this game by 8 or 10. So I'm gonna take Miami. It's a stay away for me, but it'll be curious to see what Tua looks like. Hopefully he's healthy. Hopefully he looks okay. But if he's the same guy who was playing earlier in the year, I'm gonna expect that half quarter, that quarter of explosion that they've been getting out of him. And I don't know if Pittsburgh can counter that offensively.
Well, I know Pittsburgh can't counter that offensively. I'm still going to take Pittsburgh here. I like Miami to win, Pittsburgh to cover. I like the under. There's something about this Miami team I don't trust, but there's a lot about this Pittsburgh team I don't trust. I agree with you. This is mostly a stay away. I think there's better value bets to be made including our next game, the New England Patriots hosting the Chicago Bears. The Patriots are 8-point favorites. The over-under sits at 39.5. It looks like Mac Jones is back, which actually kind of makes me feel a little worse about picking New England here. But Chicago's not a good team. They don't have a very good coach, and they're against a Belichick team. So give me New England. We said before the year, fade New England early and then bet on them when the schedule gets weak. This is the part where the schedule gets weak, so I'm putting that plan into action, Jimmy.
Oh yeah, give me New England. Give me the under. I don't think New England will have to score points like they did last week. I think this is another big Ramondre Stevenson game. Just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Couple shot plays should do it. Yeah, New England's going to be 4-3 here come Monday morning or Tuesday morning.
Yeah. Any final thoughts here on Week 7 of the NFL? We have covered all the games. We did talk a little bit about some of the positioning that's coming up. There is some separation happening. We'll see what happens with the Titans and the Colts. That'll go a long way in deciding what happens in the AFC South. And Baltimore-Cleveland's a big game in the AFC North. If Cleveland wins that just brings everybody together at 3-4. But any other games that are really standing out to you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, like if we can kind of talk about some of this schedule stuff here for a minute, like there's a lot of, I think the Giants Jacksonville game is huge for both teams in their division. I think the Chargers really need to win this football game against Seattle because I believe the Jets are going to beat Denver. Like the AFC is looking to be ugly. Just like we thought it was, there were going to be a lot of teams kind of bunched together just because of what the talent is. And then the one that scares me is if Pittsburgh would somehow happen to beat Miami, at worst, they're one game out in the AFC North, which is insane to me. Like Mike Tomlin just finds ways. But I think Miami, who really had playoff aspirations, need that game to kind of keep ground with the other teams just in the AFC.
Yeah, especially with the Jets being 4-2.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of really big games on the schedule, but I do think Kansas City, San Francisco, and Cleveland, Baltimore are the two most pivotal for the season.
Yeah, and we're starting to see those conference and division records come into play. Again, I brought it up with the Browns. They lose this game, they're 1-4 in the conference, and that is really going to hurt them, even if they do find a way to win some of these games coming up before Watson comes back, and then they do go on a run when he does come back. It's just they're going to have dug themselves too big a hole.
Right, and you could, I mean, in all theory, you could have, right, if Cleveland and Pittsburgh win, and Atlanta somehow beats Cincy, you could have a 4-way tie in the division, everybody at 3-4.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. That would just be nuts. And again,
so
the Browns are looking at 3 teams that they're going to be chasing for that playoff spot right now. The Jets, the Patriots, and the Chargers. They lost to all 3 of those teams. Yeah. So even if they wind up in one of those bigger tiebreakers where you get 3 or 4 teams combined, it's like opponents. So that shit's going to matter. And they've dug themselves a hole like they normally do, Jimmy.
Yep.
All right, well, that should be enough for this week. We will be back next week to talk about Week 8 and what we saw this week. Definitely feel like I have a better grasp on what's going on with the league. It's been kind of a topsy-turvy season so far. Teams that we thought were going to be bad have been better. Teams that we thought were going to be pretty good have turned out to be kind of meh.
Yeah, thanks, Tampa. Thanks, Rams.
Coaching really matters in this league, man. Just ask the Browns. Just ask the Broncos. Look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's 2-4. They maybe don't have the record that they would like, but that team is not a complete disaster like they were last year with Urban Meyer.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
All right. Well, thank you, Jimmy, for running through this Week 7 slate. Hopefully, we found everybody some winners out there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I would like to thank all of you for listening. Please give us a like or a subscribe so that you can continue getting every podcast we come out when it does. At some point, we'll do an NBA podcast. We'll get our good friend Brandon Fenty out here to talk about what we see It's still really early. The NBA season doesn't really start until Christmas, as they say, but there may be some bigger moves before that, especially with the Lakers, because that team's a mess.
Hey, Lakers, I just want to let the Lakers and the Nets know I'm available. You can pay me way less to do exactly what Westbrook and Simmons are doing. I'm sure of it.
I can try and learn how to make jump shots. It'll be more than they'll do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week with more No Broken Legs.